Yeah, so you can imagine the kind of conversations have at Burning Man. Like if you're gonna design a game at Burning Man, it's probably gonna turn out something kind of like this. I feel like.
Yeah.
Tetris Effect is the latest title from Tetsuya Mizuguchi's game studio, Enhance. They're the team behind 2016's Res Infinite, and more recently, Luminess Remastered. Not only are these two of my favorite games of all time, but I've also been playing Tetris in nearly every iteration since birth. When I found out a new Tetris was not only being made with VR in mind, but being made by the Enhance team, I was convinced this game was being made just for me. I got a chance to sit down with Tetsuya Mizuguchi and MacDonald to play the game a little early at our offices and ask them about the process behind making a game like this.
I've heard in an interview that you'd wanted to do Tetris years ago, right? Like
yeah, long years ago.
So, and it wasn't able to, it didn't fall out, and as a result, Luminess was made.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is really interesting to me because, like, in my opinion, Luminess is like right there with like neck and neck with Tetris. Like I've played probably just as much Luminess as I have Tetris. I'm curious in this alternate dimension where you were able to make that Tetris game in 2003 or 2002.
Yeah.
What it could have looked like at that time.
If it could, you know, the Tetris meets like Res experience at the time. I think we had the same kind of same experience in this, you know, Tetris Effect. You know, we mixed with the sound effects and the visual effects, and we played, but we felt, oh, this is not enough. So we add, you know, zone experience, you know, and maybe, you know, the Luminous has a kind of a mechanism, you know, it's like a sequencer. You know, the line all the time it's moving, you know, with the music and the sounds. And not vertical, you know, this is like that kind of shape.
Yeah. Right.
So, I think that was a really good thing.
Right.
For us.
Yeah.
To me.
Ultimately,
for my
it was a
team,
good thing.
Yeah. For I think it's everybody, you know, who played Luminous before.
Sure. And I feel like the stars kind of aligned in a way, right? Because like you can't think of the PSP without thinking about Luminous, at least in my mind. Like they kind of go hand in hand. And the PSP had that widescreen, and it was like portable, and it was like the perfect game for that system. And in a lot of ways, I think it defined it. So like now having like, you know, created Luminous and now Tetris Effect all these years later, the kind of game that it seems like you've always wanted to make. How do you start with Tetris Effect?
So we had a long pre-production. It's very thin and long pre-production.
So not like people working full time, but
yeah. Just only 10-15%. You know, me and Ishihara, who is the director and the art director also, and with sound team. So we had, you know, we drew the many arts, and we discussed about what kind of stages, what kind of music, and what kind of the visual thing. Yeah, let's make that kind of a, you know, journey experience.
I told you that it's greater.
And we had that kind of a long pre-production, maybe for 2 years, almost 2 years. And beside that, so we had the production, Res Infinite, Area X, and then we finished the project, you know, Res Infinite. Okay, let's move on. Tetris Effect. But at the time, that was a trip project, Zen Tetris.
Yeah.
So we also, you know, had a code name like a trip.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Many different meanings of trip. But yeah, but a big one of it being what ended up being Journey, which is like, we wanted people to feel like they had almost like a story with the game, and we wanted people to feel emotion, which is not like much of a stretch for an album or a video game or a movie, but for a puzzle game, you know, people will be like, you know, what? You want people to, like, emotional reaction playing a puzzle game, like, isn't it, it's just logic, right? It's just feeding that one side of your brain. And so really, like, the idea, and even going further back with Miz's, I think, conversations with Hank Rogers, who's you know, the guy who, like, signed Game Boy Tetris. He's been involved with it since the 80s, is still involved with the Tetris company, is very, very much into this idea. I mean, a lot of this game is also inspired by him. As much as it has Miz's and Enhance's DNA in it, it is very much also Hank and Tetris company's baby. They had these like long, crazy conversations on the big island of Hawaii where Hank lives and where Miz loves to go.
And even in Burning Man also.
Okay, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so you can imagine the kind of conversations have at Burning Man. Like if you're gonna design a game at Burning Man, it's probably gonna turn out something kind of like this. I feel like. But yeah, I think that also has as much to do with it happening now than even, the idea being from 15 years ago originally.
Yeah.
It was both, because it was that one that got away, both from Miz and the Enhanced side and also from the Tetris company's side. They also really wanted it to happen at the time, but it became like a licensing issue. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So now it's like finally, okay, now we're finally gonna do that thing, that's been like burning in them for 15 years, and it's definitely changed, I think, like we were just talking about, like from what it would have been 15 years ago on the PSP to what it is now, and then also just VR being here now is just a total like amazing happy accident. It's like now it's an idea that was built for VR before there was VR to be there for it.
Yeah, and you've mentioned before in previous interviews that you've always wanted to work in VR, and that's kind of a thing that, I mean, even your other work with, like, we joked earlier about the suit.
The synesthesia suit.
Synesthesia suit. And the Joy-Cons for Luminess Remastered and like all this vibration stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's so fascinating, but like right now we're kind of alive in amazing times, right? Like VR is affordable now. I mean, it's affordable to an extent, right? But having played Area X, which I loved,
awesome.
How much of Area X, or I mean Res Infinite's like DNA is in Tetris Effect?
I think a lot.
Yeah.
So almost the same team and
Unreal Engine, both Unreal Engine 4, a lot of particle heavy graphics.
Yeah.
So we're moving that kind of the whole team and the whole asset to moving forward to Tetris Effect. Everybody go out traveling around the world.
Yeah.
The team went to, I think, to Hawaii, and I traveled also. So that kind of inspiration, we coming back and talk again. Yeah, so we had that kind of discussions, ideas, and our team, everybody can, give the ideas.
Right. Yeah.
So and we discuss and okay, it's really good idea. Let's try.
Yep.
Let's make and play. Yeah, many ideas we wasted.
With both the zone system and the effect modes, there was a lot of trial and error. But back to your original question, I think that really Res Infinite was the perfect, reacquainting the way to reacquaint everybody with Miz's style of game, and also just kind of the merging music and graphics and gameplay. I mean, we learned a lot just in VR about practical stuff about how to not make somebody sick. We're really proud of the fact that with Res, by and large, we do not get messages at all about people getting sick, and that's not just a frame rate thing. It has to do with a lot of stuff, that some of which is notable, some of which is not. Turning speeds and
details, many details.
Yeah, like not having a horizon, and like some of the art being more abstract, and just a lot of stuff. And so learning things like that, like color schemes that work and don't work, better or worse in VR or with each other, just like how to react particles to the music, how to work Unreal Engine to have it, look like things are moving along to the music. I mean, even if you see the first level of this, I think it's like almost like the next, what would have been the next level from Area X in terms of what's going on technically behind the board, and we're pushing way more particles and stuff like that now. All that stuff really doesn't matter, though. At the end of the day, it's like, are you feeling more out of it? Like, do you get like a bigger smile, or you know, sense of like dread or melancholy, if that's what if that's what we're designing to feel. Like, are you feeling it more? And you know, we think that the answer is yes, but like, you know, Area X was really, and even redoing Res was really just like exact training for this game.
That's
you
awesome.
know? Yeah.
Yeah, and I also remember reading that, like, you know, part of the reason why I think you were Enhance and the team that worked on Res Infinite was so excited about that game is because it's like VR gives you the opportunity to no longer look at these games in terms of like how they appear in a rectangle, right? So
Right.
I love this quote that Mizuguchi-san, you said a while ago about how like VR gets us to a closer sort of representation of pure like imagination, which I think is pretty awesome, because I mentioned it before when I was playing that like sometimes this is how I see Tetris when I actually dream of Tetris, or when because I actually
awesome.
have experienced the Tetris effect, which is like a cool thing, which is why the trailer I was like, oh cool, they're actually trying to, you know,
Yeah.
chase this thing down,
Dive right into there.
dive right into this like
Yeah.
really cool concept. And part of that is you can't talk about the game without like talking about the music.
Right.
And I know that Hydelic, the team
Yeah.
that made the music for Area X, is working on the music for this game. What's that process like, and how does that fuse into the creation of, like you said before, even narratives and stuff?
Right.
The first, the Hydelic, the members, you know, the music members make the music first anyway. You know, from the inspiration, art, and the story. Not story, it's like a poem, like, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, not you know, the details. Yeah, it's like a
It's like
it's
a mood. Yeah,
mood
or
and
like,
a-
okay, it's
yeah.
going to be this kind of theme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We want to make the space for you know, this, thinking about, you know, kind of inspiration. You know, I want to give them the inspiration. You know, that kind of space.
Right.
So, and yeah, trying to make some tracks, and we listen the music, and okay, this music is really match for this stage, was this mood, and okay, let's cut the sounds, divide the sounds, and assign to some actions and materials, and yeah, so finally, you know, the player can play the music as a result, you know,
Right.
the game playing.
Right.
So, yeah, this is a kind of an orchestra, right?
Sure.
Harmony. So, and we start to tune, like, you know, tuning, moving a sculpture, kind of a feel.
Interesting.
And it's moving, the shape is moving all the time, and the colors and the dynamics and the meaning is getting a storytelling, and the tune, this sounds to much more harder or softer,
Mm-hmm.
or much more higher or lower, much more emotional.
Yeah.
Instead of, okay, let's change to the human voice.
Mm.
It's getting better and better and better,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
You know, including me. So my team all the time is learning. So from Area X and then Tetris Effect. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It was
No,
it was interesting to see the music and the art, because they would go like this kind of as they advanced. So the music track would get a little bit better or different, or we would try something else, and then the art would kind of react to that. It'd be like, oh, okay,
That's
it got a
fascinating.
little warmer, or you know, the music theme of the music seemed a little bit more like they were in the same space, but the music track had more of this kind of mood. Well, then the level would come up and follow it. Maybe the level would add something, and then the music would react and make a sound effect to, you know, or change the sounds when you rotated the piece to affect that new bit of graphic. Or, yeah, it had to be together, right? It couldn't be a game where we made the game and in the last 6 months we called in like the you know, music person, or just, you know, some games even they make music tracks and then they decide like, oh, this kind of sounds like this stage and whatever. It was not that at all. They had to be there from the start. The music people were there the entire time. They were core members of the team. They were there every day. And yeah, as it got polished, everything got polished. And when it came together at the end, you know, it's one of these games where we didn't show this game very early. We only debuted it at E3. Here we are kind of finally showing all the rest of it here, you know, only just a couple weeks before the game comes out. Part of the reason for that is, a big part of the reason is that it's such an audio-visual heavy experience. Like, it's not fun if we show you, you know, like the equivalent of like a gray box version of this game, where it's like, oh, it's got placeholder music, it's me singing, but you get the idea, right? No, you don't get the idea. You need it to be a polished, really totally synchronized experience to even get what we were going for. So it's very much, you know, the last 6 months that the game really came together, but we knew it was going to be that because no game looks polished until the last 6 months. So
yeah, I noticed some. I think one level I played also had some sort of singing in another language. So how does that come about?
I've been to Bali Island many times, and so I recorded the very native ritual.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
So I decided, okay, let's put that. You know, that is the Human Voices Orchestra. I think that 100 people, you know, is getting the circle, and the 7 parts.
So they were tuned each section to a certain like do, re, mi.
Layers,
Yeah.
just only by human voices. And this is all, you know, 100 people shouting and moving. That is amazing. So, yeah, so I took that kind of inspiration to my team, and Hydraulic made really good the music and the sounds.
Even our debut trailer, you know, we got a lot of people who were like, what is, you know, they just thought it was an existing track. Like all the music from this game is made for this game, and he is really good at using like remote outsourcing and have them sing the track. We'd get the track, we'd put it in. Sometimes it didn't work. We went back and forth on it, or sometimes it just wasn't, you know, just right. We wanted it with more like feeling at the start, or like more, you know, softer here, or like there were different parts where it didn't match the mood or the stage, so it had to go back and forth. But like, I was really impressed what he was able to do, what they were able to do, I should say, outside of the studio. And I don't even, some of the tracks, like there's a track that's very like Middle Eastern inspired and stuff like that. I don't even know how he got them to do, but they sound like really authentic, but at the same time like really match the whole mood of the game.
That's cool.
Yeah.